All right, I've got some awesome news. We have a giveaway, a $929 giveaway. You can win an Ego blower pack with a blower, two batteries and a charger. That is a giveaway for anyone who's previously bought the Aussie Green Business Mastery course or buys before June 30th. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm working on some stuff behind the scenes, and it looks likely that we're going to be doing a lot of these giveaways. So if you've been thinking about getting the course and you've been on the fence about it, maybe you don't have the time, now's a great time because it's winter. Maybe you wanted to pull the trigger, well, now's a great time to do so. So like I said, we're going to draw this in early July is when the draw is going to be given, but if you buy before the end of June, you're in the chance to win. And because the course is so expensive, your odds are very high. This is great. This is way better odds than you get at the lotto. So anyways, if you're interested, you can go purchase that. Let's get into the podcast. All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. Very special episode with Shaun from Pure Turf. Welcome to the podcast, Shaun.
Thanks for having me, Luke.
I asked you on the podcast a few months ago because I wanted someone who has your experience with high-end maintenance, and I think, as you can see on the screen, right now you have some beautiful properties you look after. You started off on golf courses, you know your stuff, so I wanted to have a chat. But when I asked you, you hadn't been on anyone's podcast. Recently, someone stole my show, and Joel from the Landscaping Podcast, who we can all agree is the B-grade, second-rate, maybe slightly below average podcast of the industry, got you on. I mean, some people thought it was a good episode. I can't see why Joel's involved. But at least you've been able to warm up before coming on here. So how's it feel being famous, mate?
Yes, very unfamiliar.
But yes, go check out Joel's episode. On a serious note, if you've been listening to a while, you know we're joking about Joel. Let's start with this. If we're on your Instagram and we're looking at some beautiful work that you're doing, how do you get to do these sorts of amazing jobs, stropping up lawns, doing beautiful hedges, and I can see roses and flowers and what looks like some pretty expensive properties? How did you get to a point in your career where that was what you were able to do on a regular basis? Because I think there's a lot of people listening to this, that's what they would love to achieve, and they'd love to learn from someone like you.
I think starting off on golf courses, there was that need for high-end maintenance. That was purely turf at that time. But then starting my own business and branching out into garden work as well, that was the area that I wanted to push for. I like making things neat and tidy, and I like the presentation of everything. I
can tell. I think, when I look at your work and some of the things that you've been doing, again, I've got this on the screen, you can see this on YouTube, people. I think you're one of the people on the internet, and I've asked this of other people, who the follower count you have, to me, doesn't reflect the quality of the work you do. And I mean that in the nicest sense, because sometimes the algorithm takes it and promotes it for whatever reason.
Yep.
But I think more people should be following. So people go jump and follow. You got 703 followers right now, but I think it should be a lot more. So I'm hyping you up there.
That's
beautiful.
That was probably more than I thought I'd get when I started the account anyway. Joel kind of pushed me into going to Instagram to show my level of work.
Yeah, that's good, man. Look at that. What are you using? What are you cutting with?
That's the Allet Sterling 51.
51.
Yeah, so just a small...
Is that the Ego-powered one?
Yeah, so just a small battery cylinder mower.
Yeah.
Kind of just shows the results that you can get from a smaller mower as well.
What's the lawn here?
That's tall fescue.
And how high are you cutting it?
At that time, that would have been cut at 25 mil.
That's wow.
So a lot lower than recommended.
But it's also very defined stripes at 25 mil. Like they're super clean. Have you gone over that multiple times?
That would have just been once.
Wow.
So, but it's probably burnt in at that period of time anyway. So I'll probably cut it like that striping effect for probably about a month before as well.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'll change it up eventually.
Obviously, the hedges, everything else. I'll take this off the screen in a minute, but I'm going to give a synopsis of your story. We talked about this before we were recording, because I think we should just get straight to the meat of how do you get these jobs and how do you run your business so that you can produce high quality work, because there's so many things that go into that people don't realize. Obviously, the knowledge, organization, being prepared, how you communicate with clients, how do you even start to quote these things. But you started at a golf course. Well, when you left school, school, you started working at a golf course. You were there for 12 years from what you were saying, and then you've started your business. Is that roughly the story?
Yeah, so I did a 4-year apprenticeship on the golf course to start off with. Mm-hmm. And then left that course. It was just a public course and went into the private system. From there, worked my way up to second in charge. That led to me doing a diploma of turf management as well. And then left that to start running my own business 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't an easy start. I mean, I did air tasker jobs at the start. Like, I was kind of I took anything at the start, just working 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Until I got my foot in the door at some higher level clients. One of the starts there was a push into the higher level, which came from the wife of my first boss on the golf course. So she's Tina Crawford. She's just released the plantology book at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so she recommended me to a garden designer in Melbourne for some lawn maintenance.
Right.
Yeah.
And once you got in with them, how did that work for you? Like, did you just became easy? You just kept getting jobs, or was that still another slow process? You having to build that reputation? Yeah,
no, that was still an extremely slow process from there. So at that point in time, I was just doing lawns for Jane Jones, and then from there, it was Paul McCasker referred me to a client in Malvern. And then that kind of kicked off my career once I moved to Geelong. She knew someone out there, and that's kind of where it started building.
So the connection, how did that first connection start? So you had the boss of was it their property? Was it a friend of theirs property? I'm trying to come from as practical a level as possible for people listening. How did that first? Because that's usually the one that's most important. The first.
So the first big one to get onto with a landscape designer. So that was my first boss's wife. She used to run a nursery, and the designer used to go in there for plants. And the designer was looking for someone that was a bit more higher end in just the lawn aspect. Mm-hmm. And then I got that referral from there.
So now when I look at your business 8 years later, or maybe it's a little bit less than from that moment, is all of the work that you do now this high-end stuff? Is it majority? Are you still taking on some jobs, when you've got some space? What does your business look like?
I would say 90% of my gardens are fully designed and irrigated.
Right. And that's the dream a lot of people have.
Yep.
And do you pinch yourself now? Like, do you think of Shaun 8 years ago and go, man, like he'd be so proud of that achievement?
Oh, definitely. I honestly didn't know where it would take me.
Okay. Let's get into some practical stuff with this then. How are you maintaining these properties? Are you going off gut feel? Do you have programs? Do you have schedules? Do you have a bunch of product in the ute? How do you think about maintaining these facilities, especially because you're doing lawns and gardens, and they're like two different disciplines?
So most of it is honestly off gut feel. So working on the golf course background, we'd actually assess the golf course daily.
Mm-hmm.
So going to a client's place, if you're there weekly, fortnightly, you're assessing it weekly or fortnightly. I think finding having a set schedule doesn't always work because the weather patterns will change.
Right.
So the seasons will change. At the moment, we've got a warmer, drier autumn. So you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't plan for that kind of wetter period. So the autumn's been stretched out and delayed. So you
Mm.
kind of can't have a set plan in place to cater for that either.
And so, how do you quote your clients? Are you quoting them just we do the work and we charge you, and you pay and deal with it? Do you have monthly figures?
No, I'm pretty much still based on hourly rate plus products. Um, I think I've built that trust up with clients where I can just state my hourly rate and no questions are asked.
Do you find that stressful with the communication side when someone new comes on and you're not sure if they do trust you?
Not really, because most of my work now is based on what I can do and what I've achieved.
Yeah.
And I'll walk into a job, they want me there because of the level of work I do, not for what I charge. I've had a few clients, I'll walk in and they're just, when can you start? They don't even ask a price.
Right. Yeah. I'm guessing then once you have that trust, if you're not stressed about setting an invoice, because I have this. I was doing some stuff at the school recently, and most of our stuff is on simple monthly stuff, and we've had
Yep.
some irrigation issues, and we're digging trenches and having problems, and we don't know how long it's going to take. And I set an invoice, and I always feel a little bit like not guilty. But like you're just sending an invoice and you haven't told them what it's going to cost because
Yep.
you don't know. Nobody knows, and they don't care because they understand that the problem's got to get fixed and they're either paying us or someone else. But I get nervous and I get stressful for that. But then if you have that trust, it's just probably just easy and peaceful. Like, yep, I do the job. They trust me. I send the invoice. I don't have to rush. I don't have to try and fit in with a certain amount of time. I'm not slamming my jobs out. I can take my time and do a good job.
Yeah, I've probably been stressed about sending some big invoices out, but I find everything that you do still has to be within reason, and you have to be able to explain why you've used those products, why you've done what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that communication with the client. You're still building that trust constantly. You let them know why you've put this fertilizer out or why you've put this insecticide out, why you've needed to use a fungicide at this point in time. So it's just that constant communication of why you're doing things. It educates them at the same time, so they build their knowledge up and therefore they trust you a lot more as well.
I wonder, well, what would you think is more important? I guess, don't sit on the fence with this because that'd be easy to go. But if you were talking to another business and they were like, you could have average or below average communication and great knowledge, or you could have really great communication and fairly average knowledge. Which one would you think is more likely to get your type of clients?
I'd probably say the communication and average knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, you have to keep them well informed of what's going on.
And I guess with Google and YouTube and the ways that you can learn online these days, you can figure it out as you go to a certain degree.
Yep.
Like you could be trial and error on someone's backyard. It's not always comfortable when you're
Yep.
charging, but if you're communicating, you have that trust. You can probably fill that other gap with the internet.
Yeah, well, exactly. Even when you state trial and error in someone's backyard, I've done a few trials in people's backyards, but before I start that, I talk to the client, explain what I'm actually trying, explain what can go right, what can go wrong, what we're hoping to achieve, and if we get the result that we want, why it will benefit them down the track.
Yeah. And do you find that the people, because, okay, here's a myth that I see, or maybe it's not a myth in certain areas, but in my area, I know a lot of people will complain about rich people being hagglers, stingy, and people say that's why they're rich. I haven't really found that. I haven't
No,
found
no,
that. And I find that there's people who use it as an excuse, or maybe it's not an excuse, they genuinely believe it and it's a reason, but it's a wrong reason, not to target those higher-end jobs because they think, oh, they'll be difficult, they'll be challenging, they'll be nitpicking. And I don't find that.
No, I think the higher paying jobs, even some of my clients are more willing to do stuff in their own garden than what lower paying jobs are.
Yeah. Is that because they've invested so much and maybe it's like, if I was going to buy a Ferrari, I'd wash it on the weekends.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas my Suzuki Swift, which I still love dearly, has not been washed in many, many years. Like it's an interesting way of thinking about it. The spending more money makes them better. Yeah,
well, they've paid for that investment. They want to enjoy it at the same time. It doesn't mean they don't have to do anything to it. Yeah. Yes, they pay us to work in it and make it look nice and tidy, but a lot of the time they still want to be involved and do something as well.
Right, small business owners, we've got to be honest. Like, we need to be honest in this conversation right now. A lot of you are really average or even terrible at admin, getting back to clients, replying quickly, getting through those people who are emailing you. And I can understand it. I've been there. You're on the tools, you're working in the rain, you're working in the hot days, you're struggling to get through everything, and then someone calls that email and you just hate the idea of replying to it. The way to solve that issue, there's a couple, but the first step to solving that issue is to have an admin system, a dedicated admin system. If you're running off Google Calendar and your email, you're going to miss opportunities. It's going to cost you money. It's going to take you a long time. I did a full podcast with my wife, who runs the admin side of Silverstone Gardening. She's 8 months pregnant in this podcast, right? And she's got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. She stays at home. She looks after them. They don't go to daycare. And if you're going, that is insane. She's running multiple staff. How does she do that? We did a podcast on that. And the big point is that we're using a software system called SortScape. We love it so much that we went to SortScape and we said, hey, can you do a deal? Help the people out and sponsor the podcast. And I said, yes, we'd love to. So we have an exclusive deal. You can get SortScape with the first month for free. That's a discount that you get. And I highly recommend that you sign up to it now. It's winter. This is a time that you have an awesome opportunity to improve your business before the hot weather comes, before the craziness happens, before you run off your feet. Improve those systems so that you're way better at managing your business. Again, full podcast. Listen to that. I've got a link in the description and a free first month for SortScape. Again, link is in the description. Can I just repeat this? Please, for your own sake, go do something about your admin this winter. Have you seen David Beckham? You know David Beckham, the soccer player. Have you seen that he's really into his gardening now?
I saw that ages ago, yeah.
Yeah, I find it fascinating, like more into growing his own food. But I made a video on it about a year ago, just a short one, because I was like, it's really interesting that you could have all the money in the world, for all intents and purposes. Once you're in the multiple millions, I think you're doing fine. And he could have whatever hobby he wanted, and he's chosen to work with dirt and plants. Yep. And I think it just shows that there's something so attractive and natural and, I don't know, sort of maybe even ancient, because that's how we used to survive, that it connects you to nature, it's enjoyable, and it's funny. It's like you spend a lot of years trying to get yourself out of those chores. You have all the money in the world, you go back to doing those chores.
Yeah, it's pretty much like you're going back to basics, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And growing your own food, I think, as well, if you're health conscious.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you do any of that, or you get sick of it working with plants? By the time you get home, you just think Coles option's the best one?
Yeah, no, at home I don't have much at all at the moment. We've recently moved house as well, so we'll try and get this up to scratch at some point.
Yeah. Do you have major plans, or you just think, no, I'm going to chuck in a robot lawnmower because I can't be stuffed?
No, I'm happy cutting it. I'll get the grandstand out there and cut the backyard. Takes me 5 minutes. Yeah.
13 square meters with the grandstand, yeah. I remember when I bought my first Hustler and I had, 35 square meters on the front lawn, and I'd cut it with the Hustler.
Yeah, I've had some good looks in the street.
Yeah. Hey, I just spent $10,000+ on this. Stop judging me, all right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they're just jealous, those people. They wish they could. Oh, man. Okay, so when you're driving around, if you're using Initiative and you're sort of solving problems as you go, are you carrying a lot of product on your ute?
Probably not as much as you'd think. I think I carry the basics. I started off carrying a lot when I transitioned into a van. And I've kind of reduced that down to the basics of what I think I'd need if issues popped up. Fertilizer and stuff I'll kind of chop and change with the weather and the time of year of what I need.
So what are your go-to products? Not tools, products, fertilizers, wetting agents, herbicides, like just the top 3 or 4 that straight off the dome that you just think, these are the ones I'm using all the time.
Yeah, so I get all my products through Lawn Addicts.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan out there has been pretty good with me here in Geelong, close by. So I'd probably say number 1 from him would be Calpro, Hydrolink Advance for a wetting agent. And then for me, I'm trying to go like a more organic kind of route with everything. So there's a Fertec Bio, which is pretty much like a fish emulsion fertilizer as well. And then I've been going with High Cure, which is a new biostimulant product.
Is that from Syngenta?
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen it advertised. I don't know much about it.
It's good, especially for the plant stress. I've found it to be amazing.
Yeah, so like with heat stress, frost?
Everything. I've used the High Cure and I've mixed Ryan's got a product, Phosphider, which is high in phosphites. So I'll mix those two together to strengthen the plant up. So far, just using Phosphider on the tall fescue lawns, I haven't had disease issues in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
And you used to get them before?
There would have been, yeah. When I first started there was a couple of disease issues, and since using that on a monthly basis, I've had nothing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot, especially with the schools, because we've had a couple of these fungal issues, and nothing that's been a massive outbreak.
Yep.
But one of the challenges, because these lawns that we're doing are Kikuyu lawns, I've been under-fertilising to prevent the growth.
Yep.
And a lot of traditional lawn fertilisers are just high in nitrogen and iron. And they will have maybe a lot of K and things like that in it. But I've been going down the route of, instead of necessarily chasing the colour this time of year, being okay with moderate colour, because I don't have an endless budget. I can't apply all the products. But focusing more on trying to get that health, because then it would stop me from applying harsh chemicals, which is in the long run cheaper.
Yep.
But also, at a school environment is something I'd like to avoid.
Yep. Anything that's high in potassium and phosphorus, you'll be winning there. With applying nitrogen, I'd say that tall fescue lawn you had up earlier that was striped, I haven't given that a granular feed since the start of spring.
Right. And just the monthly, like Phosphider, is that what it was called?
Yeah, your Phosphider, Calpro and High Cure and the Fertec Bio. I'm trying to hold off granular as long as I can.
And that would be very low nitrogen, like natural.
Extremely low. Yep.
Yeah, right.
And I've cut the cutting frequency down from weekly. I can stretch that out to fortnightly on that tall fescue.
Yeah. See, that's one of the things that we've been doing with our programs is we find that when it's tough in other ways, but if you can be smart with how you feed it, you can cut it fortnightly and get pretty good results. And then obviously that opens you up to a lot more people because weekly mowing versus fortnightly mowing is a huge price difference over the course of a year. But I'm really surprised that you're getting that great colour without the nitrogen. Is that like, how good quality is the soil that you're using?
I think it's fairly good quality. I'm not exactly sure what Joel put in there because that was Joel constructed that one. But it was done properly.
Probably the cheapest thing, I reckon.
It could be.
No, he does. I don't think he would be cutting corners on it. Like if you're going to spend all that time and effort installing something.
Yeah, properly. Everything's done properly with Joel, and I've never really had any issues.
Except for his paving. If you noticed recently, he keeps getting broken pavers from a supplier. He puts them together in interesting
funny
pattern.
shapes, yeah.
Exactly. And then he got this other one where he's got different shapes.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Makes it hard for himself. Or he's got this funny thing growing in between them. Yeah.
And it does look good, though. It does. I don't know. There's something about it which, if you compare it, just squares, it's a lot better. I wonder, because in our location over here, we really struggle with just the really sandy, like low nutrient soils. And one of the things I've struggled with is when I put a granule out, when you're chasing the colour, we don't get anywhere near the longevity out of that granule that someone over east would get, and you see it in the the recommended application rates. They're like, this will give you a 4-week release, and it might be technically still releasing, but it's being completely flushed through the sand. There's nothing that's being held there, and then you put a little bit more nitrogen down because you think, I need a little bit more, and there's a knife's edge between this is a thatch monster and this is a little bit underfed. And so I have really been thinking about strategies to try and balance that, and I'm not sure I've got something. I'm literally going down the path of making a custom fertilizer for our business. Because there's nothing out there that quite exists, and it's an expensive process because you've got to buy tons of it to justify them making it for you. But it is a challenging condition. It's nice to hear that you don't have to do that over where you are. You've just got if you have a good soil or even a moderate soil, you're getting really good results with that.
Yeah, the sandy soils are a bit more difficult. Coming from the golf course background, all the greens were sand profile. Yeah. So you had to really watch what you'd put on them, but it was little and often pretty much. Mm-hmm. We were putting something out weekly.
And is that a synthetic thing? Was that a wetting agent every now and then? Was that the whole brew, everything together?
It was fertilizer weekly.
Yeah.
So only little amounts, so you're spoon feeding it every single week. So nothing's really leaching through the profile.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the challenge. That is the challenge with, because how do you price that? And that's one of the things I was going to ask you for, because if you're going from a golf course, and this is what I've realised having chat with a few people, and the next podcast we're doing is with the golf course superintendent. The way that people manage golf courses, you're there all the time, and you can be a little bit more, reactionary, go with your gut feel, because if you get it wrong and you're a little bit underfed the next week, you put more on, Whereas if you're there every 2 weeks or maybe every 4 weeks in winter, it's harder to balance that because you couldn't possibly, not possibly, there'd be some people, but it's very hard to justify that price for a weekly fertilisation for a home owner,
Yeah, well, I find most of my clients are weekly or fortnightly, so I'm there quite often, and they're not getting the foot traffic you'd get on a golf course, so the fertiliser's not as important to get correct. But you don't want to overfeed because then you're just cutting it all the time. And I found with my weekly visits, if I can stretch out the cutting to fortnightly, I can spend more time in the garden. So I'll mainly concentrate on lawns 1 week and a bit of garden work, and then the next week I can mainly just do gardens.
How often are you applying herbicides in the gardens, in the lawns, is that something that's really rare for you?
Extremely rare. Yeah, I'll try and steer away from any type of herbicides.
And why do you think that you're getting minimal? Is that because you're pulling them out all the time? Is there other practices that you're doing that's avoiding them?
I think first of all, you got the health of the lawn. So you got a healthy lawn, you got a stronger system to smother out the weeds to stop them from germinating. And I'll verticut every maybe 2 months, depending on what the lawn is. So the tall fescue, I'll probably only verticut once a season. I'll do that every season, get rid of some of the thatch. You don't have to get rid of all of it. Some thatch is healthy. But yeah, I get very minimal weeds.
Right. And so verticut is that what like a golf course would usually call like grooming?
Yep.
Yeah, not a full vertimo scalping it down, just tickling
Yeah,
it.
no, I kind of steer away from doing a full renovation on anything. I still think little and often is best there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've found I don't need to do, even on kikuyu and cooch, I don't need to scalp it right down every year. I don't feel the need to do that on a domestic lawn on a yearly basis.
What height are you cutting your kikuyu and your cooch at?
So I've had kikuyu before, cut 15 mil through summer.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I've been using growth regulator on that as well to keep it down, and that's only getting cut every fortnight as well.
Right. Yeah, wow. And what's the temperature like? Is it like still get really warm in summer?
I get low to mid 30s quite consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we had 1 or 2 days over 40 here through summer, and that was it.
Yeah. That's why. Okay. So plant growth regulator, and you're still not putting the nitrogen on that and that kikuyu. You're using the same products you were talking about before?
Yep. Yeah, I'll
right.
still stay away from nitrogen.
And you're still getting amazing colour.
You still get good colour, yeah.
Yeah. It must be pretty good soil. There must be something in it.
The
Otherwise,
soil's good. I mean, obviously you could probably get better colour, but it doesn't need to be amazing colour.
I also find that an evenness of colour is probably that's half the problem. You know what I mean? Like when you have deep, dark sections because there's healthier soil there and not so great other sections, you want to pump up the whole thing. And if the whole thing's looking a 7 or 8 out of 10 though, because it's nice and even, it looks good.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing coming from the golf course background. You want that uniformity. So if everything's uniform, it looks a lot better than if you got patches everywhere. So you can have a lesser colour, but it's all uniform, or you can have a dark green colour, but it's still patchy and doesn't look as good.
So when are you pulling out the granule fertilisers?
So I will go the start of spring just to push it out of winter, and then I will assess it from there. So
do you get many people who, or do you, when you, you're on the internet and you're seeing other contractors and how they work and how they go about things, what critiques, not anyone personally, but what critiques would you have for people who are trying to get into this field here and you're noticing stuff, you're like, that's not so great, or you're going to struggle with that. Do you notice that? Do you think about that? And if you do, what comes to mind?
I probably do think a lot of it is the communication and then taking pride in your work. I find there's a lot of people out there that don't take much pride in their work. They're just trying to rush through the work and get the volume of work done. I've found slow down, concentrate on the quality of work, and that's what leads to the high-end work is the quality, not the time that you take.
Do you feel like, I mean, I don't necessarily need to know what you're earning. That's personal information. But I hear some people who argue that model of being efficient and rushing makes you more money. But I'm starting to doubt that because maybe it will over a week. but then if you burn your body out, but then again, maybe you're actually earning amazing money doing the method you're doing, charging an hourly rate, taking your time, doing things properly, not ripping people off, but doing it the right way.
Yep. I think there's a lot of people, say, on a contractor's page that think the more jobs you can do, the more you will earn. But what are the expenses like on those jobs? So they're running flat chat, running a mower, running a whippersnipper all day long. So they may be cutting 2,000, 3,000 square metres in a day, if not more. Whereas my biggest job's 500 square metres. So that's my cutting for the day. That's my main expense for the day. The rest of the time, I'm in garden, still earning the same hourly rate, but a very minimal expense.
Yeah. And you don't have the blades, you don't have the wear and tear, you don't have to replace your machinery as often.
Yep.
But physically too. Like if you're, depends what job you're doing. If you're cutting massive hedges or pulling out, gardens all the time and digging massive holes, okay, that's bad. But if you're just lightly maintaining the gardens, like you would have a longevity that if you're smashing out, huge numbers of lawns all the time, you're not going to get.
Yeah, exactly. There's not as much strain on the body if you're taking your time and doing things properly as if you're rushing around trying to get everything done.
Yeah. What do you think about... I think this is where the mulch catch debate comes in, because I think a lot of guys will present the health benefits of mulch, but what they really care about is the fact that they get their jobs done quicker. And it's like, oh, mulching's great for the lawn. And it's like, you don't really care about that. You're doing, lawns that no one's trying to make them look amazing. Yep. You're just cutting it quicker and using that as an excuse. And that's, I think, what grinds some people's gears, because they're going to charge the same price. And there's clippings, maybe they're a little bit hidden. Maybe they're well hidden, but there's clippings on the lawn. You walk over it, the dog tracks them everywhere. And the argument is, look how efficient I am. Look how much money I'm making. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not as profitable.
Yeah, I think you can have the mulch catch debate till the cows come home, really. But then I'll put it to everyone who, I'll do a mixture of both. And I'll put it to people that say you can't mulch, you shouldn't mulch. Does a golf course catch their fairways? Do they catch their surrounds? It's not very often you'll get a golf course have a catcher on a fairway mower. And look at the presentation that they're getting there, look at the quality of turf they're getting. But the key is they're cutting little and often. So they may be cutting 2, 3, 4 mil off at a time, whereas a lot of people that don't like mulching or are against it are cutting, you might be cutting 20 or 30 mil off that lawn at a time. Yeah. That's where they're leaving a lot of clippings, and that's where they get tracked around. That's where it looks messy. Whereas if you're only cutting a very minimal amount off, that falls back into the turf canopy and you don't even notice it.
I have an area at the school that we look after that we cut very high because it's under some trees and we want to give it a lot of height for the shade. And I've got the multi-deck or whatever they call it from the walker, so I can put a mulch plug in, I can mulch, and then I can catch. And early days when I bought the deck, I was like, well, I could mulch this high area and let it fall through and it'll all be good. And, it's a better mulching deck than most, but what I've heard is that the dedicated mulching deck is the best. So I don't know, maybe it's a reflection of the deck, but I've mulched that area a couple of times and I have to go over it twice to get the clippings to properly fall through.
Yep.
Because it's a fortnightly cut. And the amount of time it takes me to cut it twice is the same amount of times it takes me to catch it.
Yep.
And there's been a couple of moments where I've just been taking the top off and I can get away with mulching it. And, you can't tell. Dedicated mulching, you can't tell. But I've also been wondering about that. You don't have to take green waste away. There's benefits. And I'm not against it, because the point I'm getting at is not that mulching's bad. It's just that when people are like, mulching's the same level of service as catching, sometimes, but like you said, if you're cutting the golf course, how often are they cutting a fairway? Well, how often were you cutting a fairway?
We were doing twice a week.
And how many people are mulching a residential property twice a week?
Exactly. So you can have the debate, but it comes down to the level of service you're providing in the long run anyway.
It's literally cutting it, 4 times in a fortnight, whereas most of us are cutting our clients once in a fortnight.
Yep.
And yeah, it's different. I don't want to shoot the whole idea down, but I guess the thing I'm getting at is when people they're really mulching for the sake of money. And then they present it as a health benefit. We're putting nitrogen back into the soil, and okay, maybe technically you are, but that's not. You just be honest. You're doing it for efficiency, and it's not the care for the quality of the turf.
Yep, it depends. Even for me, depends on how much growth I've had in between mows, even on a high end property, to whether I'll catch or mulch. If I haven't had much growth, I'll just mulch cut it.
I've been we're in the process of quoting another school, and they've got this massive oval, like enormous. And I've been thinking, and they're bloody expensive, but I have been thinking about buying a Toro cylinder ride-on mower, maybe a second-hand version.
Yep.
You can put catches on them. You don't really want to put catches on them, right? So
not for an oval anyway.
No. So one of the things about them is I mean, did you use Toro in your golfing days? You there, babe?
Yep.
Sorry, we lost you. So we had some internet issues.
That's all right.
Did you use Toro in your golfing days?
Yeah. So Toro we used mainly at the private club. We were on Toros.
Yeah, does the 3-gang mower throw all of their clippings forward, or is the back one throwing it backwards?
No, it's all forward.
Yeah, because I was thinking that, because then you're recutting it, because you're throwing it forward and then recutting the stuff that you've just cut, and then you do cut it fine. Yeah,
and it depends on how long the turf is as well. So you've got that overlap on the back one from the front two. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the back one will lift up a little bit, because there's clippings being thrown from the front ones that go into the centre. So if you've got a long turf area, that back one lifts up.
And it creates a little bit of a
so you get
too high to cut sort of thing.
Yeah. So it has to be done regularly.
Yeah. So what I was thinking of doing is cutting the internals with a catcher, because that's where all the classrooms are. I'm not going to make a decision now. We've got to win the contract first, and then probably in spring I'll see. But even then, I was thinking, like, if I do it, I'm going to be throwing it forward, and I'm gaining efficiency because I'm using a 72-inch wide cylinder mower. But then I would still maybe do a ring run around the entire oval to pick up if there's any piles at the end of the run. Do you know what I mean?
So what we used to do, if we'd cut fairways and they were a bit, or pretty much most of the time we'd cut them, we'd run the blower over them afterwards as well. Yep. So we had the toe behind blowers. So you'd run around on a Toro Workman with that, fly up and down the fairway just to blow anything off. Kind of evens out those little piles, especially when it's a wet, dewy morning.
Yeah.
So the dew, obviously, you create lots of little piles everywhere, and we'd just blow those off with a blower. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to see what I do with that, because, they're not cheap. They're crazy expensive these days. They're in the 70s.
Yeah, so some of them can get up that high, yeah.
And, I know, I got a quote for one 4 years ago.
Yep.
663. And now they're like 75 or something. I just got a ballpark price.
Yeah,
it's
everything's gone up.
Yeah.
I think the grandstand I've got, I can sell for more than what I bought it for at the moment.
What did you buy it for?
That was 12.
Gee.
Yeah.
For a grandstand, man.
Yeah. And they're up to, like, I think 16 just for a 36-inch now.
Yeah. The Hustler I got, I when I bought it was 14.
Yep.
And now they're $19.99.
Yep.
Like they're just under 20. Crazy. Yeah, yeah, that's inflation for you.
Yeah,
At the end of
that's
the day,
life.
like, the thing is, I would still buy it. It's just crazy how things have gone so quick. You just need to raise your prices in line with it, which is not easy. Easier said than done.
Yeah, not always possible.
But the machines that I've bought, like that one, I've never had it break down. I've never had a problem with it. Like, and I've had it for almost 5 years now. And it's like, well, when you spread it out over if you're going to use it for 5 years, it's, not that much of a difference, but it is crazy. So like going back to 75 grand for a mower, well, if you're going to do multiple schools with it and it's a cylinder mower and it looks schmick and you're striping it up and then you win more contracts, it's probably worth it. But that's why I'm thinking secondhand, because I'm like, gee, 75 grand for a lawnmower.
Yep.
It's
and then,
nuts.
I mean, if you find the work for it, you might go brand new down the track.
Yeah, that would be... I mean, you'd feel like you've really achieved something, wouldn't you? You spent 75 grand on a lawnmower. I've really... It's either a great sign business is going well, or it's a terrible sign you're delusional and you're about to go bankrupt.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, man. But some of these mowers, I've seen some that are like 250,000.
Yeah.
For
they're not
some
cheap.
of these massive... That's crazy.
Yep.
But then you look at how much they cut.
Yeah,
And
exactly. The
if you're doing
productivity
councils-
of those mowers is insane.
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to some brands today. We're organising already the Makers Month for this year because people really liked it last year. I was not going to do it, and I was like, I don't want to do. I was thinking about. I was like, I don't want to do another video call podcast series because that's the first one we did for Makers Month. Because I don't know how much more information I could get from it. Then I was like, well, if we charge them, we can fly over, we can get a cameraman, we can actually do stuff. I don't know who will say yes, and so we threw some price down. People said yes.
Yep.
And then this year I'm like, let's take it to the next level. Let's go mow some overgrown fields, and let's go like throw some machines into some really strange and challenging things and see how they go. Which is another step up in price because it takes a long time to film and a lot of editing, and you're paying people for it and flights and all around the country. So I'm getting organised and I'm going early and trying to get these brands. And one of the things I want to do, and I don't know if I can do it, so I'm not going to mention which brand it is, but there's lots of brands, right-on brands that have different sizes of mowers. I would love to go to a field. I'm not talking about maintained oval. I'm talking about a field. Maybe we talk, 10 centimetre tall grass. So realistic, I don't want to do too crazy overgrown. And go his 4 different sizes and 4 different price points. Let's go the resi version. Let's go the semi-commercial. Let's go the full commercial. Let's go the really big. And let's get them all to cut an acre. We'll put a drone up. We'll time-lapse it and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And that'd be awesome. Like, I would love to see that. I haven't seen that. I'd love to see and then you think about the price. Okay, if I'm going to hire someone, I say, Shaun, I'm going to hire you, and I've got to pay you 80 grand a year, because you do great work, so I'm paying you good money. And then all of a sudden, the cheap mower looks expensive because I've got to pay Shaun to sit on the mower, and the other one's cheap because. And it's crazy how all of a sudden you've made a $200,000 lawnmower look cheap.
Yep.
So, assuming it's efficient. If it's not, it looks damn expensive. But that, I don't know. Comment in Spotify and YouTube if you like that idea, because I'll show the brand those comments, and hopefully we'll get it over the line. I'm serious. Help me out here, people.
I think the real-time productivity would be a lot better than seeing the spec sheet.
Yes. And I'd love to do it with battery. That's the other thing I've been trying to, like, you go talk to these battery brands and like, how long will the battery last? And it's like, it depends on the condition. Well, how about we go to a really overgrown job, a moderately overgrown job, and like a not overgrown at all job, and let's just mow them all, and let's just show you how much battery it used.
Yep.
That would be great. But again, it just takes time. And so no hard feelings to the brands if you can't do it. But other people, help me out here. Reach out to the brands you love and be like, send messages here or whatever and be like, I heard Luke talking about this. You did last year's Makers Month, or, you didn't do it. Go jump on. So we'll see.
That would be a good comparison anyway. I don't know if you get different brands in at the same time though.
No. No, we can't do that. I want to do it within the brand.
Yep.
And just let the brand go. This is our resi model.
Yep.
Mate,
Have the advertising piece. Yep.
Yeah, and do all of them, and it'll just give context to why does this mower cost so much.
Yep.
I was talking to one guy recently about he's thinking about getting a stand on, and I've got the Hustler stand on. And he's got a Hustler sit down machine, and one of the things the Hustler does well with the specs that they do is they give you the estimated acres per hour. And I think more brands should do that if they want to sell more stuff because it makes it easy to compare.
Yep.
And from memory, I think the width of the machine was pretty similar between the resi and the commercial, but the commercial has better hydros, it has a bigger engine. It's just faster top speed, and so gets more stuff done.
Yep.
And so why would I pay 20 when I can pay 10 or whatever? Well, that's why. But it'd be nice to see that on camera.
Yeah, well, we turned on the golf club. I think we started off with two 52-inch, I think they were Kubotas doing the rough cutting.
Mm-hmm.
So we had two people out there. Took 2 days to do rough cutting, so 4 days. Eventually got rid of those two mowers and went to, I don't even know the width of the Toro, but it was one with the wings. So you got the big deck out the front and the wings on the side.
That's the 190 or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly the width of it, but that turned a 4-day job into one person for 2 days. So you've halved the time of the job.
I'm looking it up. It's 104 inches, 140 inches or something.
Yeah, it'd be 104 probably.
I'm just looking. I'm looking because yes, 144 inch cut.
There you go. Yep.
I'll put it on this. I'll put it on the screen. We've had issues with putting things on the screen, so hopefully we don't screw the entire podcast up. We're getting both of our sponsors in this episode, so they're very happy.
Yep. There you go. I don't even think ours was that wide, to be honest. The side decks weren't that big. But yeah, that cut the time down massively. These
are enormously expensive, though.
Yep.
I think that's the Z Master one. So I think there's a different one they were showing me because they've got several options. Toro has so many products; it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a lot, and they're not even all out here yet.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is the American website. I don't even think it's.
Yep.
But they had one, when we filmed our Makers Month there, they had one off to the side, a second-hand one that had like 4,000 hours on it, come from a golf course and lived a life. And I was like, what are they new? And they were like, oh, it's 140 grand. It's like, gee, 140 grand.
Yeah, the products aren't cheap. I did, after I finished my diploma, actually, I got a scholarship to go to the Jacobson facility in America.
Wow.
And we tested some of their products and were over there, and it was just insane what they've got over there compared to what we've got here.
There's so much more money over there, though.
Yeah, heaps more. The market is huge. Compared to here, the market is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And with COVID and stock... we saw that. There was a lot of companies that were really behind on stock in Australia because the Americans were like, "Why would we send anything to Australia when
we need it all?"
Yeah, we don't want to. We want to upset our own people, and we make way more money off us than off you guys. So get stuffed.
Yep, exactly.
I wonder how many people. Let's be honest. How many people have bought a 144-inch mower or something similar? Because they're compensating because they're lacking a few inches somewhere else, or maybe not specifically in a certain area, but it's a very tempting thing. On a serious note, it is a tempting thing to buy big pieces of equipment when you start making money, and then the work never comes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You need the work for it first before you even get it. you'd rather start off with a couple smaller machines and then transition to bigger before you get that work.
That's well. Some companies that have some very specific high machines, like there's one just down here that's got the Eco 250 top dresser. I'm so thankful for that because it's not something we use a lot, but when we use it, it's great. And we only have to pay $250 to hire it once instead of 17 grand to buy the whole thing. Thank you very much, you know. There's a few other things like that. Do you have any specialised gear like that? You've got the Verticutter, which I'm assuming is the cartridge.
Yeah, I've got the cartridge for the Sterling, and I've got a dedicated Predator scarifier.
Oh yeah.
Apart from that, that's it. If I need big top dressing jobs done, I'd subcontract it out.
Is there somebody in your area with a spreader?
So they can hire one as well. There is a hire place around, but purely I'll subcontract it out to another bloke in the area that I know. He's from golf course background as well, purely because I don't have the time for that job. So that takes me away from looking after the facility. It's an extra job on top of what I'm already doing, and I'm nearly at capacity already. So anything further, I kind of need someone else to do it.
Have you ever thought about hiring?
I have, but I kind of don't want that headache at the moment. Golf course, we had 12 staff, so I had to look after 12 staff members, and that was enough for a while. And then being by myself is just that added flexibility at the moment.
Do you find it like a kind of an emotional drain or a sort of a mental? You kind of get stale sometimes working on your own. Do you feel that?
I haven't felt that myself. No, I've quite enjoyed it. Being from working with a big crew for 12 years to going out by myself, I've quite enjoyed that solo time.
Yeah. Literally today we had our guys did a job. I think they broke a world record, I'll be honest. They did, you won't believe me, 28 cubic meters of mulch, right, in 5 hours between two people. And the reason they did that is it was in a single playground at a school, like a brand new playground. They're filling it with mulch. They wanted it really thick. And we quoted the entire day because we're like, who knows how bad this could be. And we knew the trucks could get close, but luckily for them, the trucks literally dumped
right in.
They just had to spread it. And so we get a message like 12:30, they're done. We're like, you're done. So I did a couple of jobs from Friday, and they're working together. And we had piled some extra jobs on for them to do together. And Carrie was like, you guys can like have a cruisy day on your own tomorrow if you wanted to. And they're like, no, we'll work together again. They work, and we'd slam jobs. I think they've got 30-something jobs tomorrow to do in one day. Right? Because we were slamming to try and fit this massive mulching job, and they want to do that. What are you doing? You can spread it over a couple of days. No, they want to smash it out, because they just enjoy work. It's like it's nice to work with somebody every now and then.
Yeah, no, I found that running staff as well. You'd have some people that would work really well with someone else, and some people that would work a lot better solo. So you kind of had to manage those relationships within the staff members of who you put on dual jobs or who you put on solo jobs as well.
Let's go back to when you started the business. You had a daughter coming, right? Or you had a baby coming, and you wanted the flexibility and the free time. But, as you said before, you also started out doing airtasker jobs, like most of us do. You know, that's how I started, just getting whatever you can. How long, or maybe I should ask this, was there ever a moment where you thought, oh my goodness, this might not work?
100%. Some of the jobs I did at the start, I don't even want to see those type of jobs again. They were terrible, to be honest. And I don't know how people still do those kind of jobs today. Obviously, everyone starts somewhere. But yeah, I couldn't go back to that again.
What sort of stuff? Overgrown stuff, rubbish.
Yeah, overgrown. Some of them like knee high, hip high, rubbish scattered throughout. It was pretty much just anything to get a paycheck at that point in time. I was only working 2 days a week while my daughter was in daycare at the time. And some days I didn't even cover the daycare cost, really.
Man. Was that the lowest point you had in business?
Yeah, the start, yep. And then
So
it just kept building from there.
Well, how tempted were you to throw the towel in?
It was probably a few times I thought about going back to a golf course or something similar. But yeah, I just persisted with it. And then once my first kind of decent quality job came up and I enjoyed that, I was like, that's what I want to push for.
So it was the quality of the job, or was there a financial part to it as well?
It was more the quality of the job and the appreciation for the work, really.
Did you feel underappreciated at the golf course?
Oh, 100%, yeah. There wasn't much gratitude from coming from management or from members as well.
That's a shame.
Yeah, so not being a superintendent is kind of nearly a thankless job, really.
How many hours were you working?
Oh, I'd say average week you'd easily be 45 to 50. That's an average week. Obviously, there's weeks that are a lot more. So you'd have club champs and stuff like that, and then you're working maybe 55 hours during the week, plus a Saturday and Sunday shift as well.
Yeah. And it's like I feel this with a lot of turf management roles like that, stadiums as well, golf courses. People only notice when it's bad. They don't say thank you when it's good. But you have some bad weather and, it affects how you can do things. You run behind and all of a sudden you're getting complaints. When everything's smooth, it's like there's an entitlement to being like that.
Yep. Well, one of the big things I had on the golf course was you'd have a few issues, mainly around greens. So you got high traffic areas and stuff like that. Where I was, we could get 300 people playing per day. So you got a lot of people every day.
Yeah.
When I had the scholarship to go to America, we went to a golf course called Sage Valley, which is based off Augusta. And the budget there was pretty much unlimited.
Yeah.
They had, he said, a busy day was 10 people. And I told him, busy day for us, we could get 350, and he nearly fell over. But they were having the same issues in little spots that we were having. So it's kind of a consistent thing, but you got a course with 300, 350 people playing a day complaining about the same issues, a course with unlimited budget and maybe 10 people a day were playing.
So how do they survive off 10 people a day?
They've got their yearly membership. So I think they only had about 50 members, maybe 100.
And the memberships had $2 billion a year? Like, how are they affording this?
Well, they have accommodation on the course for people to stay at. So people would fly in just to play golf and stay there. They would have a private chef. They had their own caddy that they could request their own caddy, different caddy, which would come and help them. It was even to the point that the superintendent said if the person was bringing their wife, the housekeeping staff would remember what flowers the wife liked and would have those in the house.
Right, so it's like ultra wealthy people are going to a very exclusive club that's deliberately quiet so that they get a private experience.
Yep, that's correct.
That's the dream golf job.
Yeah.
That's the dream
Yeah.
golf job.
Yeah.
They've worked it out. It is $2 billion a year
Yeah.
for one of these these memberships. They've got it sorted. What are we doing?
Yeah.
We're idiots. Why
Yeah.
are we doing our job?
Yeah.
We need to go over there.
Yeah. Well, the staff would have a run sheet for the day of what time each player would be on each hole, so they could be non-existent around those times.
Right.
So it was to that level that they didn't even want to see the staff working.
Do you know what? I reckon the odds are very high that these people are terrible at golf.
Yeah, probably.
Every now and then someone who actually can play comes, but they're just people who are really wealthy and like to play.
Yep.
And the whole reason, this is my theory now, the whole reason why they go there is because there's no one there to watch them
there's
be
only-
terrible.
There's
It's not
only
embarrassing.
the caddy watchers, and that's it. Yep.
And the caddy's getting paid, so he's not going to complain.
Just turn around for this shot, please. Yep.
That's exactly how. If I was wealthy and very bad at golf and quite insecure, that's what I would do.
Yep.
I would just go to that golf, and then what you do is you get someone to film you the whole time, and the 3 shots out of 140 that you do that are good.
Yep.
That's your Instagram.
They're the ones
post.
that get posted. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. 4K on a $30,000 camera.
Yep.
You know. Oh, we've got it worked out, mate. Oh man. And this comes back to our sort of $140,000 mowers. I wonder what they're using there. You might know.
Yeah. Well, they were all Jacobson. So the trip was sponsored by Jacobson. So pretty much everywhere we went was Jacobson at the time.
Have you bought a Jacobson since?
No, well, I wanted to get a Jacobson cylinder mower, but yeah, they're a bit too expensive for what I'd use it for.
What does a Jacobson Greens mower cost?
It'd be similar to a Toro price, so you'd probably be, if it's just your standard push behind cylinder mower or walk behind, you'd probably be 20, maybe
crazy.
more, 25.
Yeah, for a walk behind machine.
Yep.
And people think my Mowmasters are expensive.
Yeah.
They are.
They are, but yeah, nothing on the
Not
bigger
like
brands. Yeah.
No, I've got to go pick one up, and yeah, that's another thing. We bought one for $6,500 4 years ago now, and they're now 10.
Yep.
Yeah, for a walk behind machine.
Yep. Well, that was
Should've
like
bought
the
multiple
Sterling
back then.
Yeah, that was
you
like the Sterling when I bought it. I bought it as soon as they came out to the country. And then, so pre-ordered it. Before I even received delivery, the price had gone up.
Wow. So do you do aerating at all?
No, that's another thing I haven't. So personally, I haven't aerated or caught a domestic lawn in the whole time I've been running business.
Wow.
Because you're not getting that traffic volume on there as well. And the way I put it to a lot of people is, how often does a golf course core or aerate their tees? I never did tees yearly, and we were getting 300, 350 per day on that area. You're not getting that on a domestic lawn.
No. How high are they cutting the tees?
We could have those down to 12 mil.
Yeah, and so it's still.
Yep.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. I wonder. I'll talk to So you're around Geelong now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. The superintendent we've got coming on tomorrow is in Melbourne.
Yep.
I'm curious as to the soil types and. Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to traffic. How much traffic have you got coming onto that area? How much is that compacting it? If you haven't got that much traffic, I think you can manage that with cultural practices that aren't coring or aerating.
I love how they call it cultural practices.
Yeah.
It always and it's, what they mean is like non-chemical interventions,
Yeah.
but it always makes me think of like African dances or something, some Chinese dragon, sort of.
So that'd cause the
cultural
compaction,
thing.
though. Yeah.
It would, yeah. If you had a massive Chinese dragon, and that fire is not going to do any good for any of them.
No.
I need to find a different word. Cultural practices, like
Yep, that's the term
Why?
they use. So,
But why? Why? I don't even know why that makes sense.
Yeah,
Why is
I
it
don't know.
cultural practices? Yeah. I know. It's like I've heard it many times, but I still don't understand why that's the term.
yep,
It should. I don't know. Physical practices. What are they? I don't know.
yep.
I'm dancing around a subject that might get me cancelled, so maybe we need to move on. You're not allowed to say anything about anybody else's culture at the moment, apparently.
Yeah, no, you can't now.
No, you can't. You can't have a sense of humour either. Although I think things get a little better. They get a little better. We'll see.
Yep.
Back to lawn conversations before we do get cancelled. Actually, no, I did want to ask you about hedges because you're doing a bit of buxus. Are you feeding them? Because they're quite hungry typically as well.
Yeah, I do feed them. I'll go away from what everyone else is using at the moment because I've kind of the products I'm using I feel are just as good and get the same results.
What's everyone using? I might be out of the loop here.
So everyone's on the top buxus train at the moment.
Right, yes, the top bucks.
I've steered away from that.
Is it? Do you think it's a scam? I sense some sort of apprehension, or is it just that you just don't like it?
Oh, I think the ingredients are similar to other fertilizers on the market as well. So you can put something out there that's similar and have that name, and everyone thinks that's what it's specified for, but you can get just as good products elsewhere.
Yeah, and that happens a lot in Bunnings.
Yep.
Like this is a rose fertilizer and this is a citrus fertilizer,
Yep.
and you look at them and they're like, man, they're like a 0.25% different on the nitrogen and 0.5% different on potassium, and it's the same source for everything.
Yep. It's the whole glyphosate as well.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
A brand name at 10 times the price of a no-name brand, and they're just as good. Although
I have been buying the name brand, but in 20 litres. So
it depends on price, really.
Yeah, but that's because we get the Ultramax, and it needs a minimum amount of mixing.
Yep.
And because you get in 20 litres, there isn't too much difference on the 20 litre front. And people who buy, if you're buying the 360 non-name brand, you're probably paying more than Ultramax. But no, I'm with you on that. But with the fertilizer stuff, I've been looking into this a lot recently. Like I said, 'cause I've been trying to come up with some blends. And it is really interesting when you start going down the path of like, I want to order 2 ton of fertilizer, 5 tons of fertilizer in one hit. How cheap things get.
Yeah.
It's bloody expensive, and you know, like I couldn't do it unless I had a warehouse like this, and the warehouse isn't cheap. So maybe actually it isn't expensive. Maybe it's cheaper to buy it from Bunnings. But I've been getting a little like glimpse into how much these fertilizer companies are marking up their products. And look, things are expensive. You got to run a business. They're all kind of doing it, so it must be what's required. But it's huge.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Everything in bulk is a lot cheaper. I suppose it comes down to if it's a smaller package, you got more handling of that package as well.
There's a product I could buy. This is not a custom product. This is a mass-produced, good quality, liquid fertilizer. If I was to buy 1,000 litres of it, it would cost me $3 a litre. All right? Now, I've got to store 1,000 litres, okay?
Yep.
It's in a big IBC. If I was to buy that, I can get that product on a different name on a Bunnings shelf, and I know it's exactly the same product. It's $29 for a litre.
Yep.
$29.99 or whatever it is. You know, Bunnings is $98, $97. That's something I've noticed about them. But yeah, it's I can get 1,000 litres of it for $3. So maybe I should just buy 1,000 litres, decant it, and sell it for $27. Dollars. Same product. But I'm sure it's a lot. It's not as easy as that. If it was that easy, everyone would do it. Because this is like this is not any deep research. I've just gone to a brand and go, hey, I want 1,000 litres of this, and they go, here's the price, and I was shocked at how cheap it was.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Just got to
have you looked
that
into
bulk outlay at the start as well.
Yes.
But yeah, I haven't got storage either for anything, so I'll try and buy 20 litres of things instead of smaller packages where I can.
Yep.
So I've got shelving units set up to buy by 20 litre drums of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably as big as I can go.
I'm thinking I might be able to modify the racks there a
Yep.
little bit. The problem is a 1,000 litre IBC it's about half a metre wider than the racks are.
Yep. So it's sticking out, yeah.
It stick out quite a bit. And there's a few other places, one's them to my right, I can't show you. The camera won't turn around enough, but I can kind of fit it there.
Yep.
And
so we just had them sitting on I think 3 pallets at the golf course in the shed, just spread out along the walls, so you could get it was a 5 litre jug or a 10 litre bucket under it and decant it that way.
Yeah, the problem is I don't have enough width. This is long and skinny. And my vines at the back, I want them to touch the floor. And I can't put it at the back. Anyways.
They might dip down into some fertiliser drums. That'll be fine.
They'll be going real good. Yeah. They'll touch it, I'll see them touch it one afternoon. I'll come back after the weekend and I won't be able to get into my warehouse.
Yeah.
I have 1,000 litres of straight nitrogen. I mean, it would burn them, but I wonder if that's if there's a plant that, I don't know, could grow sort of like that rapidly. Maybe mushrooms. They go pretty crazy.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you don't really want to go down the path of actually hiring people. Are you thinking that, when none of us are getting younger, do you think you're going to be able to sustain this? And this is a genuine question because it's going to be helpful for people. Do you think you can sustain what you do for decades to come?
What I'm doing at the moment, yes.
From a physical, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And that comes back to this conversation about efficiency or what you're doing. So this is a really wise long-term move to go down sort of the path that you're doing. And are you turning away a lot of work?
I've turned some away, yeah. Depends what work it is as well. I mean, Joel keeps throwing work at me and it is to the level that I want. So anything that's kind of a little bit under that, I can kind of replace to kind of just at the stage where I'll take work that I want to do.
Yeah.
So I don't have to say yes to stuff. I can say no if it's not quite up my alley. I'll still go and have a look at the job and see if it is exactly what I want. And if it's not, I'll just try and recommend someone else for them.
Yeah. And that's a great place to be in. Do you have friends in the industry that do the same sort of thing you do in your area?
There's a few around, but I don't think to that level. But there's
they're more
probably,
sort of normal maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't really know many that I could recommend the extreme high level to. I know the person I get the subcontract if I need top dressing or what air rating done will be Trent from Everything Turf. So he came from 13th Beach Golf Club, so I know his quality of work's really high. And if there's a client that just wants lawn maintenance, I'll send them to Trent because I don't want to just do lawn maintenance. I want to take care of everything.
So if you were standing in front of somebody who was a similar position to you, let's say they've been in a golf course, because there will be people who will be listening to this who were in the same place you were 8 years ago. Let's say they've worked in a golf course, they've gotten to 2IC or 3IC, and they're not going to get a promotion because they are waiting for someone to retire. It's not them. It's not their fault. They're doing great work. And they think, okay, I want a better option here. I want to increase my hourly rate. I want to do, what Shaun's doing. What process, what's the top 1, 2, 3 things that you would be recommending to that person?
I'd probably say if I was to do it all again, I'd probably try and get some after hours or weekend work to start off with. Because reducing down from full time to 2 days a week where you weren't even filling up those 2 days a week would be a pretty hard hit at that point in time.
What machinery would you buy? What's the first stuff you're getting?
I mean, you need a decent mower and whippersnipper to start off with. Um, and if you've worked on a golf course, you can do a lot with very minimal. You're trained to do a lot with very minimal machines.
Do you think you would go cylinder early on if somebody wanted to get into that high-end stuff?
No, I'd still go rotary. Um,
Right.
you can do high-end lawns with rotary as well. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to stripe. Everyone thinks high-end you have to stripe. You don't have to. Um, you can have a really nice lawn and garden with no stripes.
So you need, I guess, a sprayer, a fertilizer spreader, your basic stuff, secateurs, gloves,
Yep,
rakes, right?
yep.
Mower, blower, line trimmer.
Whippersnipper, yep. That's pretty much all you need, really.
Right, and then you're saying, we're going back to this, talking to yourself 8 years ago. Would you, the conversation around communication, were you always good at that? But you said that before was one of the most important things. Is that something you learned? Was that something you were good from day one?
That's probably something I learnt a bit more on the job. Um, I was pretty terrible at the start, to be honest. Um, it was hard to communicate the level I wanted to do at the start. And then kind of once I got that first job that was a decent level, it was easier. I suppose it was easier to talk to those clients about what you wanted to do and what you were going to do. Whereas the
Yeah.
clients at a lower level didn't really care. Just get the lawn down to a manageable height. I don't care what happens.
So how do you get that first person? Now you had a relationship with somebody, right?
Yep.
If I don't have a relationship with anybody, what would you be recommending for me to do?
I'd probably call up landscapers.
Right.
Try and get on board with them. Show them the level of work you've done previously, even if that is at the golf course. Take photos, take videos, whatever you can. Show them the level and try and get a foot in the door that way.
Is there other things that you found that have been good? Like just reaching out to people, like letterbox drops or anything? Or is it just not worth it? Like you just should really try on the landscaper front?
I tried the letterbox drops. When I moved to Geelong, I got nothing. And I did those in the quite well off area close to where I was. So I got, donuts there. So for me, it all kind of started with the relationship I had with a client in Melbourne. When I moved to Geelong, she recommended me out here.
One of the things that happens when you start off is you get daunted by like just about everything, especially if you're someone who's a little bit more maybe introverted or I don't want to say insecure, but you know the type of person I'm talking about. There's some people who are brash and outgoing and they just love a conversation. Some people are a little bit nervous.
No, that would be me at the start.
So how did you tackle that? What happened for you to become confident with those quoting and having those conversations?
I think it was more probably just biting the bullet and dealing with those people. I probably made a heap of mistakes at the start, even probably not communicating the best to those clients at the start. I think I had some clients kind of pull me up on it a little bit and just say I kind of need to know what's going on a bit more. So it kind of forces you into that conversation as well. But yeah, I'd say if you're not confident, you just got to try and put yourself out there. Maybe strike up conversations, even if it's just on the Facebook contractors page. Just strike up a conversation there. Reach out to people, even if it's just over text. Have a chat with them. Kind of just build your relationship up and your willingness to put yourself out there. I don't think anyone in the industry is going to look down on you for trying to reach out.
Well, and the ones who do are not people you should be listening to anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm starting to get warm to this idea of communicating to clients. Okay, what should I be communicating? When am I coming? What products I'm using? When am I going too far with communication? If you're, maybe run us through a job. If you did a job, how would you communicate that to a client?
Well, first would be first visit. You go and have a look at the job, assess it first, let them know what you'd plan for the job and what you'd like to happen at the job. Tell them what you can do, what would benefit the job, how you can improve the job. If you're successful in getting that job, then it's just that ongoing communication of why you're doing the things you're doing. You don't have to run through the names of every single product you're using. Just let them know what type of product you're using and why that's going to benefit their garden. If you want to trial something, I've done a few trials with different chemicals on different weeds, spot spraying, because obviously I've got a lot of cool season lawns. It's not easy to get certain weeds out of those. So I've done a few different trials, but that's been communicated with the client beforehand of what may happen, how I'll fix it if it goes wrong, but then what the benefits are if it goes right.
On this subject of trials, that happens when you don't quite know what the answer is and you've got to try something right. Okay, so when I find that when you get to a stage like we're in, I've 12 years, you're 8 years, like it's easy to have a conversation with the client and be like, I actually don't know the answer to this, I'm going to try.
Yep.
But that's really nerve-wracking to sort of admit that professionally you're a little bit, lacking. That's how it feels like sometimes. Is it as bad as what we feel when we're first starting out?
I don't think so. I think a lot of the clients understand that you're not going to know absolutely everything. I've told some clients about certain selective herbicides and they look at me like I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that was available. So they don't know either. So they even the high-end clients don't expect you to know absolutely everything. If you say you're going to look into it or you'll do your research, they're usually happy with that answer as well.
Right. And how do you work out, so you go to a job. I guess this is the big question a lot of people are going to ask. And obviously we've got the MoQuote app coming out soon, which is going to help people quote a little bit better. But how do you, right now, when you're looking at a job, how do you work out, okay, this is going to take me this much time, this is going to take me this much time? Can you give ballparks, or do you just go, the client just has to trust me, this is my hourly rate, it'll take me as long as it takes me?
A bit of both, I think. You can kind of give a ballpark figure, but even I've found when you take over a newly installed job, so obviously you got very immature plants, that job doesn't take you that long initially. Down the track, once everything's matured, it turns into a lot more work, but you've had time to build that trust up with that client.
Yeah.
So I've got one, for instance, that was designed by Ben Scott that Joel did for me, and I started there as half a day, a fortnight. Now that that's fully matured, that's a full day, a fortnight. But I haven't had to communicate that extra time with the client because they've seen how the garden's grown. They've seen what you're doing over that period of time.
Are you able to say to a client, this job is roughly a half a day, it's roughly a day, so it means it roughly is this much?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can work at a rough cost.
Yep.
I'm happy to give them pretty much what I'd charge for the job, but then I'd say I don't know what products are going to cost because even products change costs all the time. It depends on what the garden needs at the time. That can change due to weather, due to certain factors in the garden as well. But I communicate that everything's done within reason. I don't want to use products unnecessarily just because a bag states put this out every 6 to 8 weeks. Doesn't mean that you have to put that out every 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. Like I said, with our sand, it's every 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's already leached through.
Yeah.
You put it out, you turn around, you grab the blower, and by the time you're blowing it, it's gone, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to try again.
Yeah.
Well, mate, I think that's been really helpful. I think a lot of people are going to get that practical advice, and it's probably nice for some people to hear that you didn't have such a smooth start.
Yep.
Because it's probably relatable, and a lot of us don't have a smooth start. My first job, I charged $35 an hour, and immediately realised that wasn't actually making me any money.
Yep.
But mate, so where can people find you?
So just on Instagram, basically, as _lawns and gardens. There's a Facebook page, but there's not too much on it. That kind of just all goes from the Instagram page as well.
Yep, and I think you're one of the under-followed people of the industry. We've got to get more people. 703 followers. Go follow him. We'll show Joel, even though he gives you a lot of your work and actually does good work, we'll show him that his podcast is second rate. We'll get you at least 5 more followers. Come on, people. Go stick it up to Joel and support us. Thank you so much for coming on, mate. I've enjoyed it. And everybody else will see you in the next podcast.
Thanks for having me.